In the vast expanse of the Lunara Empire, where stars whispered secrets to those daring enough to listen, the planet Kitsune shimmered like a jewel caught in the web of cosmic light. Its surface was a tapestry of ethereal forests, glowing with bioluminescent flora that pulsed in rhythm with the hearts of its inhabitants, the enigmatic fox-like beings known as the Vulpine. They were graceful creatures, their society built on ancient rituals and psychic bonds that could ensnare the unwary mind. At the heart of this world stood Princess Lyra, a vision of otherworldly allure. Her hair cascaded like strands of moonlight, pure white and flowing down her back in silken waves that seemed to defy gravity. Her skin was a flawless alabaster, glowing faintly under the twin moons of Kitsune, and her ears delicate, pointed like those of ancient elven tales, twitched with an innate sensitivity to the emotions swirling around her. She moved with a predatory elegance, her body curved in ways that spoke of both fragility and untamed power, clad in garments of shimmering silk that hugged her form, leaving just enough to the imagination to drive any observer to distraction. The fabric, woven from the threads of star-spun nebulae, shifted colors with her mood, now a deep crimson of passion, now a soft azure of mystery. Lyra was no ordinary royal, she was the embodiment of her people's most sacred tradition, the challenge of the veil. For generations, suitors from across the galaxy had come to claim her hand, drawn by tales of her beauty and the promise of uniting their worlds with Lunara's vast resources. But the challenge was a trial of the soul, a psychic labyrinth woven from illusions of desire and terror. It probed the deepest recesses of the mind, unearthing hidden fears and amplifying unspoken longings until the victim shattered under the weight. Warriors from the armored hives of Zerathia, diplomats from the crystalline spires of Nethuria, even the stoic guardians of Urandor, all had fallen. They emerged from the veil babbling incoherently, their eyes wild with madness, forever changed. Some spoke of visions where Lyra's touch ignited fires that consumed their sanity, others whispered of shadows that clawed at their very essence. The Empire watched with bated breath, for whoever conquered the challenge would not only win the princess, but ascend to company rule Lunara, tipping the balance of power in the stars. Yet, amid this interstellar pageant of folly, fate wove an unexpected thread. Far from the opulent courts of Kitsune, in the gritty underbelly of the galaxy's trade routes, flew a lone cargo pilot named Kai. He was human, a relic from the scattered colonies of Earth, that forgotten blue marble now a footnote in galactic history. Kai was no hero in the traditional sense, no chiseled jawline or brooding gaze like the vid-stars of old. He was rugged, with tousled dark hair that always seemed in need of a trim, sharp green eyes that missed nothing in the void of space, and a build honed from years of hauling freight through asteroid fields and dodging pirate skirmishes. His ship, the battered but reliable Stellar Drift, was his only companion, a patchwork of salvaged parts humming with the reliability of human ingenuity. Kai lived for the thrill of the jump, the quiet hum of hyperspace, and the simple joy of delivering goods to worlds that barely noticed his kind. Humans were seen as curiosity's tenacious pests who had clawed their way into the stars without the psychic gifts or advanced tech of older races. But Kai didn't mind, he preferred the shadows, where expectations were low and freedom was high. It started innocently enough, or so Kai thought. He had docked at a neutral station on the fringes of Lunara space, offloading crates of rare earth spices that fetched a premium among the elite. The station buzzed with rumors, as stations always did. "Have you heard about the princess?" A burly trader from Velquar grumbled over a mug of synth ale. "Another fool tried the challenge last cycle. Came out foaming at the mouth, claiming he saw his own death in her eyes." Kai chuckled, leaning against the bar with his arms crossed. "Sounds like a bad date. Why bother? Plenty of stars in the sky." But the trader's eyes narrowed. "Ah, but the prize, human. Rule Lunara. That's power to reshape alliances. And her, well, let's just say she's worth the risk." Intrigued despite himself, Chi pulled up the holonet feeds on his wrist comm. There she was, Lyra, captured in a holo-vid that didn't do her justice. Her image flickered, those pointed ears framing a face that blended innocence with something feral, her lips curved in a smile that promised both ecstasy and ruin. What Kai didn't know was that destiny had already marked him. As he wandered the station's markets, haggling over fuel cells, a cloaked figure approached. It was a Vulpine emissary, her own ears hidden under a hood, but her voice carried the melodic lilt of Kitsune. "You are the human pilot, Kai of Earth?" she asked, her eyes glowing faintly. Kai nodded warily, hand inching toward the blaster at his hip. "Depends who's asking." She handed him a sealed orb pulsing with psychic energy. "The princess seeks new challengers. The old bloodlines have failed. Perhaps a fresh perspective." Kai stared at the orb, which unfolded into an invitation, a summons to Kitsune, with coordinates locked in. He laughed it off at first, tossing the orb into his pocket like a trinket. But that night, as the stellar drift hurtled through hyperspace, dreams invaded his sleep. Visions of Lyra, her white hair whipping in an unseen wind, her body arching in invitation, her voice a whisper, "Come to me, if you dare." By morning, curiosity had turned to compulsion. Humans, after all, were wired for the impossible. Kai rerouted his ship, telling himself it was just a detour, a story to tell over drinks. But as Kitsune loomed on his viewscreen, its forests aglow, he felt a pull deeper than gravity. The landing was smooth, guided by automated beacons to the royal citadel, a sprawling edifice of living crystal that hummed with life. Guards in ornate armor, their tails swishing with suspicion, escorted him through halls lined with murals depicting fallen suitors. Whispers followed him, "A human. This will be quick." Kai ignored them, his boots echoing on the polished floors. Finally he was led to the grand chamber, where Lyra awaited on a throne of woven light. She rose as he entered, her gauzy attire shifting to a sultry violet, accentuating every curve. Her ears perked up, and her eyes deep pools of amber locked onto his. "You are bold to come, human," she purred, her voice like silk over steel. "Many have tried, all have broken." Kai met her gaze, unflinching, a smirk playing on his lips. "Bold? Nah, just bored. Heard you had a puzzle that needs solving." The court gasped at his audacity, but Lyra's lips twitched in amusement. She stepped closer, her scent a mix of wild flowers and ozone enveloping him. "The challenge awaits. Enter the veil and face what lies within." As the psychic field activated, enveloping them in a shimmering dome, Kai felt the first tendrils of illusion brush his mind. Visions flickered, temptations of power, horrors from his past, lost comrades in pirate raids, the cold void claiming ships. But he pushed through, his human grit a shield forged in Earth's chaotic history. Deeper in, the illusions intensified. Lyra appeared before him, not as a princess but as a siren, her body bare save for swirling mists, beckoning him with promises of pleasure unbound. "Surrender to me," she whispered, her hands tracing invisible paths that sent shivers down his spine. Other suitors had crumbled here, lost in the ecstasy. But Kai laughed, a genuine, hearty sound that echoed in the psychic space. "Tempting, but I've seen better holograms on backwater stations." He stepped forward, grasping her illusory hand. "If this is your test, princess, then let's cut the games. I'll marry you." The words hung in the air, bold and unyielding. The veil trembled, illusions cracking like glass. Lyra's real form materialized, her eyes wide with shock. For the first time in centuries, someone had pierced the heart of the challenge, not by force, but by sheer, unfiltered will. As the dome dissolved, the court fell silent. Lyra stared at Kai, her chest rising and falling with newfound intrigue. You did not break." Kai shrugged, his heart pounding beneath the casual facade. "Humans are built different. We've stared down worse than pretty pictures in our heads." But as their eyes met, something sparked a connection beyond the trial. Lyra, for all her power, felt a stir she hadn't anticipated. This human, this outsider, had seen through her defenses. And in that moment, the stars aligned for a union that would shake the empire. The journey had only begun. Kai was thrust into the opulent world of Kitsune, where protocols and rituals swirled like the planet's mists. Lyra, bound by tradition, could not simply wed him. There were ceremonies, alliances to forge, and skeptics to silence. But as they spent time together, walks through the glowing forests, where bioluminescent vines responded to their emotions, a bond formed. Lyra shared tales of her people, their psychic heritage born from ancient stars. Kai countered with stories of Earth, wars that forged resilience, loves lost in the void, the unyielding spirit that propelled humanity outward. "We're not special," he admitted one evening, as they sat by a luminous lake. "Just stubborn." Lyra touched his arm, her fingers cool yet electric. "Stubborn enough to claim a princess?" He grinned. "Apparently." Yet shadows loomed. Rival factions within Lunara whispered of betrayal, viewing Kai as an interloper. One night as they dined in the Citadel's Grand Hall, assassin from rival Orvian struck a cloaked figure wielding a psychic blade that could shred minds. Chaos erupted, guards clashed with intruders, energy blasts lighting the air. Kai, no stranger to brawls, grabbed a fallen weapon, his movements fluid from years of zero-G skirmishes. He dodged a lethal strike, countering with a precise shot that disarmed the attacker. Lyra, her powers flaring, wove illusions to confuse the foes, but it was Kai's raw determination that turned the tide. He tackled the lead assassin, pinning him with a chokehold honed in Earth's forgotten martial arts. "Not today," he growled, as the intruder gasped for air. The battle raged on, with Kai coordinating the guards, his human tactics, unpredictable and adaptive, outmaneuvering the rigid alien strategies. Blasts echoed, bodies fell, and blood both red and iridescent stained the floors. In the end, as the last foe fled, Lyra rushed to Kai, her hands checking for wounds. "You fought like a demon," she breathed, her ears flattening in concern. He winced, a gash on his arm, but smiled. Just another delivery gone wrong. Their victory deepened the connection. Lyra began to see humans not as primitives, but as saviors, beings whose chaos-tempered souls could complement her people's order. Nights grew intimate. Conversations turned to whispers, touches lingered. One evening, under the twin moons, Lyra led him to a secluded grove where the air hummed with psychic energy. "The challenge was but the beginning," she said, her voice husky. "Now, let me show you the true veil." Her attire slipped away like mist, revealing her form in all its glory, curves that invited exploration, skin that glowed with inner light. Kai's breath caught. This was no illusion. He pulled her close, his hands rough yet gentle, tracing the lines of her pointed ears, eliciting a soft gasp from her. Their lips met, a fusion of worlds, her psychic warmth mingling with his earthly passion. The grove responded, vines blooming in vibrant colors, as if celebrating the union. But as desire built, so did the Empire's unrest. Whispers of war from jealous suitors echoed across the stars. Kai knew this was no fairy tale. It was a fight for survival, love, and perhaps the fate of galaxies. Lyra, in his arms, murmured, "Together, we will rewrite the stars." And in that promise Kai found a purpose beyond the drift, a reason to stay, to conquer. As the moons of Kitsune dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows through the grove's canopy, Kai held Lyra closer, her words echoing in his mind like a siren's call from the depths of space. "Together, we will rewrite the stars," she had said, and in that instant, he believed it. Her body pressed against his, warm and yielding, a stark contrast to the cool night air that carried the faint hum of the planet's psychic aura. He could feel the subtle vibrations of her energy field, like tiny electric currents dancing across his skin, awakening senses he hadn't known he possessed. It was intoxicating, this blend of alien mystery and raw, human desire, pulling him deeper into a web he no longer wanted to escape. They lingered in the grove longer than intended, the bioluminescent vines around them pulsing in sync with their quickened breaths. Lyra's fingers traced lazy patterns along his chest, over the fabric of his worn flight jacket, as if mapping the contours of a new world. "You've stirred something in me, Kai," she whispered, her amber eyes gleaming with a hunger that mirrored his own. The veil was meant to break minds, not ignite them. He leaned in, capturing her lips again, this time slower, savoring the taste of her like wild honey mixed with the ozone of a storm. Her pointed ears quivered under his touch, sensitive to every nuance, and she arched into him, her curves molding perfectly against his frame. The silk of her garment whispered against his hands as he explored. The material so fine it felt like liquid starlight, revealing more with each shift. But even in this haze of passion, a thread of suspense wove through Kai's thoughts. The Empire wasn't done testing them. Whispers from the court had grown louder since his victory in the challenge, jealous advisors, plotting in shadowed alcoves, rival suitors from distant worlds nursing grudges. As they broke apart, gasping softly, Lyra's expression shifted, her ears twitching as if catching distant echoes. "We must be cautious," she said, her voice a sultry murmur laced with urgency. "Not all in Lunara celebrate our bond. There are those who see you as a threat, an outsider who could unravel our traditions." Kai nodded, his hand lingering on the small of her back, feeling the subtle ridge of her tail base, a reminder of her Vulpine heritage. "Let them come. I've dodged worse than court intrigue in asteroid belts." Yet, deep down, he sensed the danger building. like the static before a hyperspace jump gone wrong. They returned to the citadel under the cover of night, slipping through hidden passages that Lyra knew like the veins in her own body. The halls were alive with subtle energies, crystals embedded in the walls humming faintly, responding to her presence. Kai followed close, his senses heightened, every shadow a potential ambush. Once in her private chambers, a vast suite overlooking the glowing forests, the door sealed with a psychic lock, and the tension eased, if only momentarily. The room was a sanctuary of luxury, floating orbs casting soft, golden light, a bed canopy woven from nebula threads that shimmered like a captured galaxy, and air scented with exotic blooms that stirred the blood. Lyra turned to him, her white hair cascading over one shoulder, exposing the graceful curve of her neck. "Here, we are safe for now," she said, her tone dropping to a velvet whisper that sent shivers down his spine. She approached with the grace of a predator, her hips swaying in a rhythm that was both hypnotic and deliberate. The garment she wore, a flowing robe that clung to her gowned form like a second skin, parted slightly as she moved, revealing glimpses of her alabaster thighs and the tantalizing swell of her breasts. Kai's pulse quickened. He was no stranger to fleeting encounters in spaceports, but this was different. This was a dance of worlds colliding, where every touch carried the weight of destiny. "Show me more of your human ways," she purred, her hands sliding under his jacket, pushing it off his shoulders with surprising strength. Her nails, sharp yet careful, grazed his skin, leaving trails of fire. He pulled her close, his mouth finding the sensitive tip of her ear, eliciting a soft moan that echoed through the chamber. "Careful," he teased, his voice rough with desire, "or you'll unravel me first." As they tumbled onto the bed, the nebula threads enveloped them like a living cocoon, adjusting to their forms with a gentle hum. Lyra's body was a marvel, soft where it needed to be, firm in ways that spoke of her species' evolutionary grace. Her skin glowed faintly under his touch, responding to his warmth with subtle pulses of light, as if her very essence was alive with psychic fire. She explored him with equal curiosity, her fingers tracing the scars from old battles, a laser burn on his shoulder, a knife wound from a bar fight on Nethuria. "These marks," she breathed, her lips brushing against one, "they tell stories of survival. Of passion unchecked." Kai's hands roamed lower, cupping her hips, pulling her astride him. The friction built, a slow burn that promised explosion. Her tail hidden until now emerged, wrapping around his leg with a possessive curl, its fur soft and electric. The erotic tension mounted, each movement a deliberate tease. Lyra's eyes locked onto his, her pupils dilating with a mix of lust and something deeper, perhaps the psychic link forging between them. She leaned down, her white hair falling like a curtain around their faces, her breath hot against his ear. "In my world, bonds like this can merge minds," she confessed, her voice husky. "But with you it's more. It's chaos and control, fire and void." Kai flipped her gently, pinning her beneath him, his body covering hers in a protective embrace. He kissed along her collarbone, down to the valley between her breasts, tasting the faint salt of her skin mingled with that alien sweetness. She gasped, her back arching, her legs entwining with his. The room seemed to respond, the lights dimming to an intimate glow, the air thickening with their shared energy. Yet, suspense lingered like a shadow at the edge of their passion. Midway through their entanglement, a faint chime echoed a psychic alert from the citadel's defenses. Lyra stiffened, her ears perking up. "Intruders," she whispered, her body still pressed against his, reluctant to break the moment. Kai's instincts kicked in, he rolled off, grabbing his discarded blaster from the floor. "Stay here," he said, but she was already rising, her robe materializing around her with a thought. "No, we face this together." They moved as one, slipping into the corridor where shadows danced unnaturally. A group of cloaked figures, mercenaries from rival Zovara, hired by a spurned suitor, had breached the outer wards. Blasters hummed to life, energy bolts slicing through the air. The fight was fierce, a whirlwind of motion in the dimly lit halls. Kai ducked behind a crystal pillar, returning fire with precise shots that felled one attacker. Lyra wove illusions, making duplicates of herself to confuse the enemy, her psychic prowess turning the tide. One mercenary lunged at her, a vibro knife gleaming, but Kai intercepted, tackling him to the ground. They grappled, fists flying, Kai's human brawn against the alien's augmented strength. A punch landed on his jaw, stars exploding in his vision, but he countered with a knee to the gut. followed by a headbutt that cracked the assailant's helmet. Blood trickled from Kai's lip, but adrenaline surged, fueling him. Lyra blasted another foe with a psychic wave, sending him crumpling in agony. Together, they dispatched the group, the last one fleeing into the night. Panting, they leaned against each other in the aftermath, the erotic heat from earlier reigniting amid the adrenaline. "You fight like you love," Lyra said, her hand cupping his face, thumb brushing the blood away. Kai grinned, pulling her into a fierce kiss. "And love like I fight without holding back." They retreated to the chambers, the door sealing once more. This time, their union was urgent, fueled by the brush with danger. Clothes discarded in haste, bodies entwining with renewed fervor. Lyra's moans filled the air as Kai's hands explored every inch, her tail coiling around him in ecstasy. The psychic link deepened, flashes of each other's thoughts mingling, his memories of solitary flights, her visions of starry empires. It was a symphony of sensation, building to a crescendo that left them breathless, entwined in the nebula sheets. As they lay there, hearts slowing, Lyra traced patterns on his chest again. "This bond, it grows stronger. But the threats will too." Kai nodded, staring at the ceiling where holographic stars twinkled. "Then we'll face them. Humans don't run from storms, we chase them." Little did they know, the real storm was brewing, a conspiracy that spanned galaxies, with Kai at its center. For now, in the quiet afterglow, they savored the fragile peace, bodies and souls intertwined in a dance that defied the stars. As the afterglow faded into the quiet hum of the Citadel's night cycle, Kai lay beside Lyra, their bodies still tangled in the nebula sheets that shifted softly with their breathing. Her head rested on his chest, her white hair spilling like a river of moonlight across his skin, and he could feel the gentle thrum of her psychic energy syncing with his heartbeat, a subtle reminder that their bond was no mere fling, but something cosmic, forged in the fires of challenge and desire. Yet, even in this cocoon of intimacy, the weight of her words lingered. Threats were coming, thicker than the mists of Kitsune. Kai stared up at the holographic stars twinkling on the ceiling, his mind racing through the possibilities. Who were these conspirators? Jealous suitors from Orvian? Perhaps, or deeper shadows within Lunara itself. He traced a finger along the curve of her pointed ear, eliciting a soft sigh from her, but his thoughts were already drifting to the storm he had so boldly claimed to chase. Lyra stirred, lifting her head to meet his gaze, her amber eyes reflecting a mix of contentment and unease. "You think too loudly, my human," she murmured, her voice a caress that sent warmth pooling in his veins. "The link between us, it's growing. I can sense your worries, like echoes in the veil." She propped herself up on one elbow, her gowned form silhouetted against the dim glow of the room, the fabric clinging to her curves in a way that made it hard for him to focus. But focus he did, because something in her expression, a flicker of hesitation, sparked his curiosity. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked, sitting up to face her fully, his hand cupping her cheek. Her skin was cool under his touch, like polished marble infused with starlight, but her ears flattened slightly, a telltale sign of inner turmoil among the Vulpine. She hesitated, then rose from the bed with fluid grace, her tail swishing behind her as she paced to the viewport overlooking the forests. The twin moons bathed the landscape in ethereal silver, but storm clouds gathered on the horizon, literal and metaphorical. "The challenge isn't just a test of suitors," she confessed, her back to him, voice dropping to a dramatic whisper that hung in the air like impending thunder. "It's a safeguard. My people, we harbor a secret, one that could unravel the Empire if exposed." Kai swung his legs over the edge of the bed, pulling on his pants with quick efficiency, his pilot's instincts kicking in. He approached her from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist, feeling the subtle tremble in her frame. "Tell me," he urged, his breath warm against her neck. "If we're in this together, no secrets." Lyra turned in his embrace, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his heart race. "Long ago, before the stars aligned our worlds, the Vulpine discovered a nexus, a rift in space-time hidden deep within Kitsune's core. It grants visions of futures, powers beyond imagination. But it drives most mad, just like the veil. Only those with unbreakable wills can harness it." Her words tumbled out, laced with thrill and dread, painting a picture of ancient guardians who had sealed it away, using the princess's challenge as a filter to find a worthy consort who could help protect it. Kai's mind whirled, curious about this nexus, surprised that such power lay at the heart of her world. "And you think someone's after it?" he pressed, his grip tightening protectively. She nodded, her lips brushing his in a fleeting kiss. "The assassins last night, they weren't just for me. They probe for weaknesses. If they learn of you, of us, they'll strike harder." No sooner had the words left her mouth than the chamber shook with a distant boom, the viewport cracking like spiderwebs under impact. Alarms wailed through the citadel, psychic waves rippling the air, carrying cries of invasion. Lyra's ears shot up, her body tensing like a coiled spring. "They're here," she gasped, her voice edged with dramatic urgency. Kai grabbed his blaster from the nightstand, adrenaline surging through him like rocket fuel. "Who?" But she was already moving, summoning her robe with a thought, the fabric materializing around her gowned figure in swirling patterns of crimson and gold battle attire. He realized, designed to amplify her psychic fields. "A coalition," she replied, her tone thrilling with the promise of confrontation. "Led by Lord Vexar of Dravex, a spurned suitor who rallied others. They want the Nexus for themselves to conquer the stars." The door burst open, guards rushing in, loyal Vulpine warriors with tails lashing and energy staffs glowing. "Princess, the outer defenses are breached," one barked, his pointed ears flattened in fear. Blasts echoed from the halls, the acrid scent of scorched crystal filling the air. Kai fell into step beside Lyra as they charged out, the group forming a protective phalanx. The citadel, once a haven of elegance, now transformed into a battlefield, corridors lit by erratic flashes of laser fire, shadows dancing with lethal intent. Invaders poured in, mercenaries from multiple worlds, armored in sleek exosuits from Zovara, wielding disruptors that warped reality itself. One lunged at Kai, a hulking brute with tentacles instead of arms, swinging a vibro axe that hummed with deadly vibration. Kai dodged, the blade slicing air inches from his face, then countered with a point-blank shot from his blaster, the energy bolt punching through the armor and sending the attacker crumpling in a heap of sparks and ichor. Lyra was a force of nature beside him, her psychic powers unleashing waves of illusion that turned the tide. She raised her hands, and suddenly the corridor multiplied, dozens of phantom Kais and Lyras charging forward, confusing the enemy. A squad of invaders fired wildly, their bolts passing harmlessly through apparitions, giving the real guards time to strike. One enemy, a sly operative from Iscaria with cloaking tech, shimmered into view behind Lyra, dagger poised. Kai spotted it, his human reflexes honed from countless dogfights kicking in. He tackled the assassin mid-air, rolling across the floor in a tangle of limbs. The dagger grazed his side, drawing a line of fire, but he ignored the pain, slamming his elbow into the cloaker's throat. A crunch, a gurgle, and it was over. Lyra whirled, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude, extending a psychic shield that enveloped him just as another blast roared their way. Deeper they pressed, toward the heart of the citadel where the Nexus lay hidden in a subterranean vault. The fighting intensified, a thrilling symphony of chaos, blasters whining, staffs clashing with metallic rings, psychic screams echoing like thunderclaps. Kai's world narrowed to survival, ducking under a sweeping laser arc, firing back to drop two assailants in quick succession, their bodies hitting the ground with thuds that vibrated through his boots. Blood, his own, mixing with alien fluids, stained his shirt, but the pain only fueled him, a reminder of Earth's brutal legacy. "Humans endure," he muttered to himself, a mantra from old colony tales. Lyra, sensing his resolve through their link, amplified it, her energy surging into him like a second wind. Together, they were unstoppable, she the mind, he the muscle, weaving through the fray with dramatic flair. As they reached the vault's antechamber, the climax built to a fever pitch. Lord Vexar awaited, a towering figure in obsidian armor, his own vulpine features twisted with rage, ears pinned back, tail whipping like a scourge. Flanked by elite guards, he sneered, his voice booming over the din. "The princess and her pet human? How quaint. The Nexus will be mine, and with it the Empire?" He unleashed a psychic assault, a torrent of nightmarish visions slamming into their minds, Kay reliving the loss of his shipmates in a void storm, Lyra facing the ghosts of fallen suitors. The guards faltered, some dropping to their knees in agony. But Kai, drawing on millennia of human turmoil, wars, plagues, extinction survived, pushed back. "Not today, Foxboy," he growled, breaking free and charging. Vexar met him with an energy blade, the weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The duel was thrilling, a dance of death under the vault's glowing crystals. Vexar struck with elegant precision, his blade whistling through the air, but Kai parried with raw power, his blaster discarded for a borrowed staff that he wielded like an extension of his will. A slash grazed Vexar's armor, eliciting a hiss of pain. In return, a psychic jab sent Ki staggering, visions of Lyra's death flashing before him. Curious questions raced through his mind. How deep did this conspiracy go? Was Vexar the puppet or the master? Surprising strength surged as Lyra joined the fray, her illusions making multiple Vexars appear. Kai struck true, disarming the real one with a sweeping blow that shattered the blade. Vexar stumbled, exposed, and Lyra delivered the final psychic blast, a wave of pure will that crumpled him to the ground, unconscious but alive. Panting, the vault secure, Kai turned to Lyra amid the wreckage. Her hair disheveled, her robe torn but her spirit unbroken, she pulled him into an embrace. You saved us," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. But as guards hauled Vexar away, a holographic message flickered to life from his gauntlet, a transmission from an unknown source. The Nexus calls. This is only the beginning. Kai's eyes narrowed, curiosity piqued by the surprising revelation. The storm wasn't over, it was evolving, drawing them deeper into a galactic web of intrigue. In that dramatic pause, with thrill still humming in their veins, they knew their bond would be tested like never before. In the echoing silence of the vault's antechamber, where the air still crackled with residual psychic energy, and the fallen forms of invaders lay like discarded puppets, Kai and Lyra stood locked in their embrace. The holographic message's ominous words fading into static. The Nexus calls. This is only the beginning. The phrase hung between them like a charged plasma field, heightening the drama of the moment as guards hauled away the defeated Lord Vexar, his obsidian armor dented, and his once fierce tail limp. Lyra's amber eyes searched Ki's face, her pointed ears still alert, twitching at every distant clank of armor. "We can't ignore this," she said, her voice a dramatic tremor that resonated through their budding psychic link, sending a ripple of shared anxiety down his spine. Kai pulled back slightly, wiping a streak of alien ichor from his cheek with the back of his hand, his green eyes narrowing in that human way, part defiance, part calculation. Beginning of what? More Fox politics. Because if it's another suitor with a grudge, I'm starting to feel like the galaxy's most unwanted wedding crasher. She managed a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes, the weight of her royal burdens pressing down like the gravity of a black hole. They moved together through the corridors, now bustling with Vulpine medics tending to the wounded and technicians repairing scorched walls. The citadel, though scarred, pulsed with renewed life, its crystals humming a low, reassuring tone. Yet drama lurked in every shadow. Whispers from the court had evolved into outright stares as they passed. The human consort, one advisor murmured too loudly, his tail flicking in disapproval. Kai caught it. Of course his ears might not be pointed, but years of overhearing broom deals had sharpened his hearing. He shot the advisor a grin, wrapping an arm around Lyra's waist with exaggerated possessiveness. "Jealous much? Don't worry, buddy, there's plenty of space out there for you to find your own princess." The advisor's fur bristled, and Lyra stifled a chuckle, her hand covering her mouth as she elbowed Chi lightly. "Behave," she whispered, but her tone held a spark of amusement, lightening the tension just a fraction. As they reached the royal strategy chamber, a vast room dominated by a holographic map of the Lunara Empire, stars twinkling like fireflies in a jar, the drama escalated. Advisors and generals awaited, their faces a mosaic of concern and skepticism. At the center stood Elder Tiva, Lyra's stern aunt and keeper of ancient lore, her white hair braided with glowing crystals, her tail wrapped primly around her legs. She fixed Kai with a gaze that could melt hull plating. "Princess, the council demands answers. This human has disrupted the balance." And now, with Vexar's message, she gestured to the replaying hologram, the unknown sender's voice distorted but menacing. Lyra stepped forward, her posture regal, but Kai felt her hand tremble in his, a subtle awkwardness born of the spotlight. "Kai is no disruption," she declared, her voice ringing with dramatic conviction. "He pierced the veil. He fought beside us. The Nexus chose him, as it chose me." The room erupted in murmurs, heightening the drama like a storm building over Kitsune's forests. One general, a burly Vulpine named Rixa with scars crisscrossing his muzzle, slammed a fist on the table. "Chose him. He's an outsider. What does a cargo hauler know of our psychic wards?" Kai, never one to back down, leaned in with a wry smile, injecting a bit of humor to defuse the bomb. Hey, I've hauled more weird alien artifacts than you've got whiskers. And let's be real, if your wards were so foolproof, we wouldn't have half the Citadel looking like a laser tag arena right now. A few younger advisors snorted, caught off guard by the quip, but Elder Tiva's eyes narrowed. Insolence won't protect the Nexus, human. The awkwardness thickened. Che shifted on his feet, realizing his Earth-style sarcasm didn't translate perfectly across species. Lyra squeezed his hand, a silent plea, but her own ears flushed a faint pink embarrassment mixing with affection in their link. To ease the tension, Lyra activated the holographic map, zooming in on potential threat vectors. Dravex's borders glowing red, allied worlds in blue. The message originated from a shadow relay in Nemoris sector, she explained, her tone grave, drawing the room back to the unfolding drama. Someone's pulling strings, perhaps a hidden faction within our own empire. As discussions heated, accusations flying like stray bolts, Kai found himself in an increasingly awkward spot. He wasn't used to this. Grand strategy sessions felt like a bad holodrama, with him as the reluctant star. When an advisor suggested scanning Kai's mind for human contaminants, he balked. Whoa, hold up. I'm all for sharing, but poking around my head? That's Date 3 material at least. Lyra shot him a look, half amused, half exasperated, her tail brushing his leg under the table in a secretive caress that only heightened the personal drama amid the political one. The meeting dragged on, revelations piling up like debris in an asteroid field. Intercepted comms revealed Vexar wasn't acting alone. A mysterious benefactor promised him control of the Nexus in exchange for destabilizing Lunara. They call themselves the Void Whisperers, Elder Tiva intoned dramatically, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent chills through the assembly. Ancient heretics who believe the rift should be opened wide, unleashing chaos to purify the galaxy. Kai leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, his mind racing. Chaos. That sounded uncomfortably like Earth's history: endless wars, corporate overlords, the scramble for stars. But he kept it light, adding humor to cut the edge. Void Whisperers. Sounds like a bad band name. Do they have matching cloaks and ominous chants? A ripple of uneasy laughter broke the tension, even from Rixa, who grunted appreciatively. Yet the awkwardness peaked when Tiva turned to Lyra. Princess tradition demands a bonding ceremony before the Nexus can be fully guarded. With him, her disdain was palpable, and Kai felt like a specimen under a scope. Lyra's cheeks flushed again, her gowned form shifting uncomfortably in her seat. Aunt, the ceremony is sacred, private. But Tiva pressed, the council must witness to ensure purity. Kai nearly choked on his synth water. Witness? As in, watch. Nope, hard pass. I'm all for cultural exchange, but that's where I draw the line unless you want me teaching your guards how to line dance afterward. The room fell into stunned silence, then burst into a mix of gasps and chuckles. Lyra buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter, the awkward situation turning absurd. Even Tiva's stern facade cracked slightly, her tail twitching in irritation. Human frivolity aside, she said, regaining composure, the ceremony must proceed soon. The whispers grow bolder. The drama intensified as scouts reported incoming signals, encrypted fleets amassing on the Empire's fringes. Kai, sensing the shift, stood. Then let's prep. But if we're doing this bonding thing, make it quick. I've got a ship to tune up. Post-meeting, the pair retreated to Lyra's chambers, the drama of the day clinging like static. She paced, her tail lashing, while Kai flopped onto the bed, trying to lighten the mood. So, about this ceremony, is it like a Vegas wedding, or do I need to learn some Fox chants? Lyra paused, her amber eyes sparkling with a mix of drama and mirth. It's a psychic merging, Kai. Souls entwining under the moons. But with witnesses it's humiliating. He sat up, pulling her onto his lap, his hands settling on her hips. Hey, we'll make it our way. Sneak in some human flair, maybe fireworks. She laughed, a genuine sound that eased the awkwardness, leaning in to kiss him. But the moment shattered with an urgent chime, a perimeter breach. Alarms blared again, heightening the drama to a fever pitch. They rushed to the battlements, the night sky alive with incoming shuttles. Whisperer Vanguard, sleek black vessels cloaked in distortion fields. They're after the Nexus directly. Lyra cried, her voice dramatic over the wind. Kai grabbed a nearby energy rifle, his humor sharpening his resolve. Great, uninvited guests, and me without my party hat. The fight erupted anew, more intense than before. Blasts lit the forests, turning bioluminescent trees into infernos. Kai and Lyra fought back to back, her illusions multiplying their forces, his shots precise and unrelenting. One awkward moment came when a Whisperer drone targeted Lyra, forcing Kai to dive in front, taking a grazing hit that singed his arm. "Oh, that's gonna leave a mark," he quipped through gritted teeth, firing back and exploding the drone in a fireball. Lyra's concern flared through their link, but she countered with a psychic blast that felled 3 attackers at once. As the battle raged, drama built with each wave, reinforcements arriving just in time, betrayals hinted at among the guards. Kai tackled a infiltrator who had disguised himself as a advisor, unmasking him in a tussle that ended with the enemy pinned under Kai's boot. "Nice try, shapeshifter. But you forgot the tail wag." The humor undercut the tension, but the awkward truth hit trust was fracturing. Lyra, amid the chaos, revealed more. "The ceremony isn't just ritual, it amplifies the Nexus's power through our bond." Kai nodded, dodging a bolt. "Then let's schedule it for tomorrow, assuming we survive the night." The skirmish climaxed with a massive Whisperer commander descending, a hulking figure in void black armor, wielding a Nexus-forged blade that warped reality. "Surrender the princess, human worm," it boomed. Kai, ever the underdog, charged with a yell, his rifle blazing. The duel was frantic slashes bending space, Ki rolling to avoid rifts that could swallow him whole. Lyra supported with psychic shields, but in an awkward twist, the commander's attack disrupted her focus, causing illusions to backfire suddenly. Phantom Kais appeared, confusing even him. "Which one's me?" he shouted, half laughing as he blasted the wrong shadow. Humor aside, he adapted, using human unpredictability to feint and strike, shattering the blade with an overcharged shot. Victorious but battered, they watched the remaining forces retreat, the drama leaving them breathless. Back in the chambers, Lyra tended his wounds, her touch tender. "You're reckless," she scolded, but with a smile. Kai winked. "Reckless wins wars and hearts." As dawn broke, the awkward ceremony loomed, promising more twists in their star-crossed tale. Little did they know, the Whisper's leader watched from afar, plotting a strike that would test everything. As dawn's first light filtered through the chamber's viewport, painting the room in soft hues of rose and gold, Kai and Lyra lingered in the quiet aftermath of the night's chaos. Her fingers, gentle yet precise, finished applying a healing salve to the singe on his arm, a Vulpine remedy that tingled like effervescent stars against his skin, knitting the wound with uncanny speed. "Reckless wins wars and hearts," he had said, his wink drawing a soft laugh from her, but now the air between them thickened with unspoken anticipation. The ceremony loomed like the rising sun, a ritual that would bind them not just in name, but in soul, amplifying their connection to safeguard the Nexus. Yet, with the Whisperer's threat still echoing in their minds, this moment felt stolen, precious, a brief sanctuary before the galaxy's demands crashed in again. Lyra set the salve aside, her amber eyes meeting his with a depth that stirred something primal within him. Her white hair, tousled from the battle, framed her face like a halo, and her pointed ears quivered slightly, attuned to the subtle shifts in his emotions through their growing link. She rose slowly, her torn robe slipping just enough to reveal the graceful lines of her collarbone, the fabric clinging to her curves in a way that reminded him of how perfectly she fit against him. "The ceremony can wait a little longer," she murmured, her voice a velvet invitation, laced with the warmth of their shared victories. Kai reached for her hand, pulling her back down onto the bed beside him, his touch lingering on her wrist where her pulse raced in sync with his. "Good, because right now, all I want is you," he replied, his tone husky, drawing her closer until their bodies aligned, the heat between them building like a slow-burning fusion core. Their lips met in a kiss that started tender, a reaffirmation of the bond they'd fought to protect, but quickly deepened into something more urgent, fueled by the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Lyra's hands explored the planes of his chest, tracing the contours of muscles honed from years of piloting through treacherous space, her nails grazing lightly in a way that sent shivers racing across his skin. He responded in kind, his fingers slipping beneath the remnants of her robe, caressing the smooth expanse of her back, feeling the subtle arch as she pressed into him. Her tail emerged, curling around his thigh with a possessive gentleness, its soft fur adding an exotic layer to the sensations enveloping him. The room seemed to respond to their intimacy, the nebula threads of the bed canopy glowing faintly, casting a warm, intimate light that danced over their forms like stardust. Kai's mouth trailed down her neck, savoring the faint glow of her alabaster skin, which warmed under his touch as if awakening to his human heat. She gasped softly, her ears flattening in pleasure, her body shifting to straddle him, the weight of her both comforting and electrifying. The robe fell away completely, revealing her in all her ethereal beauty, curves that invited exploration, a form that blended fragility with an untamed strength. He admired her openly, his hands roaming with reverence, cupping and teasing in ways that elicited breathy sighs from her lips. "You're incredible," he whispered against her ear, nipping gently at the sensitive tip, feeling her tremble in response. Lyra's psychic energy hummed between them, amplifying every sensation, turning touches into waves of shared ecstasy that blurred the lines between their minds and bodies. She guided his hands lower, her own fingers deftly working to free him from the confines of his clothing, the fabric whispering aside as they came together more fully. The connection deepened, her movements fluid and rhythmic, like the dance of planets in orbit, drawing him into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Kai's grip tightened on her hips, steadying her as they moved in unison, the friction building a delicious tension that coiled tighter with each shared breath. Through their link, flashes of emotion passed between them, his admiration for her resilience, her fascination with his unyielding spirit, heightening the intimacy to something profound, almost spiritual. Her tail tightened its coil, adding a unique thrill that made him groan softly, the sound mingling with her own murmurs of delight. As the pace quickened, the world outside faded, the threats of whisperers, the looming ceremony, the Empire's intrigues all dissolved in the heat of the moment. Lyra leaned back slightly, her white hair cascading like a waterfall, her eyes locked on his with an intensity that spoke volumes. She whispered his name like an incantation, her body arching in response to his every motion, the glow of her skin intensifying as waves of pleasure built between them. Kai pulled her down for another kiss, deep and consuming, his hands exploring the sensitive spots. He'd discovered the base of her tail, the curve of her waist eliciting responses that made her cling to him tighter. The nebula canopy pulsed in time with their rhythm, colors shifting from soft pastels to vibrant crimsons, as if the very room celebrated their union. Time stretched, each caress and movement drawing them closer to the edge, a shared crescendo that felt like navigating a hyperspace jump, thrilling, inevitable, and utterly consuming. Lyra's breaths came faster, her pointed ears quivering as she surrendered to the sensations, her psychic link flooding him with echoes of her bliss, amplifying his own until they crested together in a rush of warmth and release. They held each other through the aftershocks, bodies entwined, hearts pounding in perfect harmony. Kay brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering as she nestled against him, her tail draping lazily over his leg. "That was worth every battle," he said softly, a contented smile playing on his lips. She laughed lightly, the sound like tinkling chimes, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his chest. "And it's only the beginning of what we can share." But even in this blissful repose, the galaxy intruded gently, a soft chime from the chamber's console, signaling the council's summons for the ceremony preparations. Lyra sighed, propping herself up on one elbow, her gowned form now modestly reformed by her will shifting as she glanced toward the viewport. "Duty calls," she said, though her eyes held a lingering spark of their intimacy. Kay sat up beside her, pulling on his shirt with a reluctant grin. "All right, princess, let's make this official. But after, we pick up right where we left off." She nodded, leaning in for one more kiss, soft and promising, before they rose to face the day. The bond between them felt stronger now, infused with the passion they'd shared, ready to confront whatever twists the Nexus and the Whisperers had in store. As they made their way to the ceremonial hall, the citadel buzzed with activity, guards saluting, advisors bowing with a mix of awe and curiosity. The hall itself was a marvel, vaulted ceilings adorned with holographic constellations, the floor a mosaic of glowing crystals that hummed underfoot. Elder Tiva awaited at the altar, a Nexus artifact pulsing like a captured star at its center. The council gathered, their tails swishing in anticipation, but Lyra held Kai's hand firmly, her presence a shield against any lingering awkwardness. "This ritual will merge our essences fully," Tiva intoned, her voice dramatic as she activated the artifact. It will grant you access to the Nexus's power, but only if your wills align. The ceremony began with chants in the ancient Vulpine tongue, psychic waves washing over them like a gentle tide. Kai felt the pull immediately, a deepening of their link, memories and emotions flowing freely. Flashes of Lyra's childhood on Kitsune, her loneliness as princess, his own solitary drifts through space, the losses that had shaped him. It was intimate, vulnerable, but empowering, their shared experiences weaving into a tapestry of strength. As the artifact glowed brighter, enveloping them in a cocoon of light, Ki whispered to her, "No matter what comes, we're in this." She squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. Forever. Yet midway through the rite, a disturbance rippled through the hall, a psychic alarm sharper than before. Intrusion in the Nexus chamber. A guard shouted, shattering the serenity. Chaos erupted anew. Whisper agents, cloaked in advanced stealth fields, materialized from the shadows, blasters drawn. "Seize the artifact," their leader snarled, a lithe figure with augmented limbs. Kai, instincts flaring, grabbed a ceremonial staff infused with psychic energy and swung it like an improvised weapon, clashing with an attacker in a burst of sparks. Lyra channeled the ritual's power, her illusions multiplying to sow confusion, phantom versions of the council charging into the fray. The battle was intimate and fierce, confined to the hall's sacred space. Kai dodged an energy whip that cracked like thunder, countering with a thrust that pierced an agent's defenses, sending him sprawling. Blood hissed from a shallow cut, theirs iridescent stained the mosaic, but he pressed on, protecting Lyra as she maintained the ritual's flow. "Don't stop," he yelled over the din, parrying another strike. An awkward moment arose when a whisper grabbed for the artifact, only for Kai to trip him with a low sweep, human street fighting tactics clashing comically with the alien's elegant dodge, ending in an undignified tumble. Lyra's psychic blast followed, crumpling the foe. As the last intruder fell, subdued by combined efforts, the ritual completed in a surge of light. The Nexus's power flooded them, granting visions of potential futures, alliances forged, threats averted. Exhausted but triumphant, Kai pulled Lyra into his arms amid the cheering council. "We did it," he breathed, the intimacy of the moment echoing their earlier passion. But the visions hinted at more, the Whisperer's true leader, a shadowy entity pulling strings from afar. The drama wasn't over, it was escalating, drawing them into deeper galactic mysteries. In the hours that followed, as the citadel stabilized, Kai and Lyra stole away to a private balcony overlooking the forests. The twin moons rose early, casting a romantic glow. "With the bond complete, I feel you everywhere," she said, her hand on his heart. He nodded, the link humming with shared warmth. "Good, because whatever's next, we'll face it together." Their lips met again, a promise sealed in the stars, the passion between them a beacon against the encroaching shadows. As their kiss lingered on the balcony, the twin moons bathing them in a silvery embrace that made the forests below shimmer like a living sea, Kai felt the psychic bond pulse with an intensity that went beyond mere affection. It was as if the Nexus itself had woven threads of fate into their very beings, connecting not just hearts but histories, secrets buried deep in the cosmos. Lyra pulled back slightly, her amber eyes reflecting the moonlight, a soft smile curving her lips as she traced the line of his jaw with her fingertip. "The stars have aligned for us, Kai," she whispered, her voice carrying the melodic lilt of her people, infused with a warmth that chased away the chill of the encroaching night. He leaned his forehead against hers, inhaling the faint, exotic scent that always reminded him of wild blooms and distant nebulae. "Yeah, they have. No more drifting alone for this pilot." But even as the words left his mouth, a faint tremor rippled through their link, a subtle discord, like static interference in a hyperspace comms channel. At first, he dismissed it as residual echoes from the ceremony, the Nexus's power still settling into their minds like dust after a storm. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the bioluminescent vines in the forest pulse in rhythmic waves, as if applauding their union. Lyra's tail curled around his waist, a comforting anchor, and she shared fragments of visions through the bond, glimpses of a future where Lunara flourished under their joint rule, alliances forged with distant worlds, the whispers scattered like ashes in the void. Kai responded with his own mental images, Earth's resilient colonies rising from ruin, humans adapting to alien frontiers with that unyielding grit that had carried them across the stars. It felt right, this merging of worlds, a harmony that promised to redefine the empire. Yet the static persisted, growing from a whisper to a nagging hum, pulling at the edges of his consciousness. Curious, Kai focused on it, probing gently through the link as Lyra nuzzled closer, oblivious or perhaps choosing to ignore it. "What's that?" he murmured aloud, more to himself than to her. She tilted her head, her pointed ears perking up. "What do you mean?" But before he could explain, the hum sharpened into a flood, a cascade of images and emotions not his own, nor hers, surging from the Nexus's depths. It hit him like a warp drive malfunction, disorienting and relentless. Visions flashed ancient Vulpine rituals around the rift, guardians sacrificing themselves to seal it, shadowy figures manipulating events from afar, and then, shockingly, a face he recognized his own, but younger, aboard a ship not the stellar drift, surrounded by beings that weren't human. The bond amplified it all, turning the trickle into a torrent that made him stagger back, breaking their embrace. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm, her hand reaching out. "Kai, what's wrong?" He clutched his head, the balcony spinning as the revelations poured in. This wasn't just a psychic echo, it was a deliberate unveiling, the Nexus responding to their completed bond by unlocking hidden truths. And the twist came crashing down like a meteor strike. K wasn't entirely human. Buried in his genetic code, revealed now through the rift's clairvoyant gaze, was a strand of Vulpine heritage dormant, engineered, a legacy from a long-forgotten experiment. His mind reeled as memories resurfaced, not his but implanted his parents on Earth, actually operatives in a covert program, a crashed Vulpine scout ship decades ago, its survivor integrating with human society, passing on traits that manifested in subtle ways: his uncanny luck in skirmishes, his resistance to the Veil. The Nexus showed it all. The Whisperers weren't just enemies, they were a splinter faction of Vulpine exiles, seeking to reclaim the rift, and Kai's lineage tied him directly to their leader, a distant relative, perhaps even an engineered successor. The surprise hit Lyra through the link a heartbeat later, her gasp echoing his own shock. She stepped back, her tail lashing in confusion, her alabaster skin paling further under the moonlight. This can't be," she breathed, her voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and awe. But the visions didn't lie, the Nexus confirmed it, projecting holographic fragments into the air between them, DNA helices twisting with Vulpine markers, historical logs of the Scouts' mission to seed hybrid agents across the galaxy as a safeguard against internal threats. Kai's life, his solitary drifts, his arrival at Kitsune, it wasn't coincidence. The challenge had awakened his latent abilities, drawing him here like a beacon. "I'm part of this?" he muttered, his voice hoarse, the ground feeling unsteady beneath his feet. The powerful twist reshaped everything. He wasn't the outsider hero, he was the key, a bridge between worlds, engineered to either save or doom Lunara. As the holograms faded, leaving only the moon's glow, Lyra stared at him, her ears flattened, emotions swirling through the bond: fear, wonder, a flicker of doubt. "The elders, they must have known something," she said, her words gaining dramatic weight as she pieced it together. "The Veil doesn't just test, it awakens. That's why you succeeded where others failed." Kai straightened, the surprise giving way to a surge of human resolve, that same grit now amplified by his revealed heritage. But the twist deepened through the link. He sensed the Whisperers' approach, not a distant threat, but imminent, their fleets cloaked in the outer system, drawn by the ceremony's energy spike. And worse, the Nexus whispered a final revelation: Lyra's aunt, Elder Tiva, wasn't the loyal guardian she seemed. Flashes showed her secret communications with the exiles, her ambition to control the rift, by using Kai as a pawn, manipulating the challenge to summon him. The betrayal stung like a plasma burn, surprise layering upon surprise. Lyra recoiled as the truth hit her too, her hand flying to her mouth. Aunt Tiva? No, but the evidence was irrefutable: encrypted messages, hidden meetings, her subtle sabotages during the attacks to test Kai's potential. The Elder had orchestrated it all, viewing the hybrids as tools to seize power, the Whisperers as unwitting allies in her scheme. Ki grabbed Lyra's arms, steadying her as the balcony seemed to tilt with the weight of it. "We have to move," he urged, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. "If she's behind this, the Citadel isn't safe." Alarms began to wail distantly, as if the Nexus itself warned them, psychic waves rippling through the air. They bolted from the balcony, the romantic glow now a stark backdrop to urgency. Corridors that had felt like home now harbored shadows of doubt, guards potentially compromised. Lyra led the way, her psychic senses probing ahead, but the twist had shattered her trust. "How could I not see it?" she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes as they ducked into a service tunnel. Kai, drawing on his newfound clarity, the hybrid senses sharpening his instincts, scanned for threats. "Because she's family. But now we know, and that changes everything." They emerged near the hangar, the stellar drift waiting like an old friend, but as they approached, figures materialized: Tiva's loyalists, blasters raised. "Princess, step away from the hybrid," one commanded, his tail rigid. The confrontation exploded in a flurry of action, the surprise twist fueling Kai's enhanced abilities. He moved with unnatural speed, disarming the first guard with a psychic-assisted shove, a burst of energy from his awakening Vulpine side. Lyra joined, her illusions cloaking them in multiples, but Tiva herself appeared at the hangar's edge, her braided hair whipping in the wind from opening bay doors. "You were meant to be my instrument, Chai," she hissed, her voice laced with venomous revelation. "The scout was my sister, your grandmother. I sent her to create you, to bridge the rift's power." The admission was the final twist, surprising even Kai, who had thought the experiment ancient history. It was personal, engineered by Tiva to usurp the throne, using exiles as proxies. Blasts flew as they fought toward the ship, Kai's hybrid prowess turning the tide. He deflected an energy bolt with an instinctive psychic shield, then countered with precise shots from a borrowed weapon. Lyra, heartbroken but fierce, unleashed a wave that stunned two assailants, her tail lashing in fury. "You betrayed us all," she cried, the drama peaking as Tiva charged, her own powers flaring. The duel between aunt and niece was visceral, psychic lashes cracking like whips, illusions clashing with raw force. Kai intervened, tackling Tiva from the side, pinning her with strength amplified by his revealed heritage. "It's over," he growled as guards loyal to Lyra rushed in, alerted by the alarms. With Tiva subdued, bound by energy cuffs, the immediate threat quelled, but the twist's ripples extended further. The Nexus, through their bond, revealed the Whisper's fleets decelerating, their leader Kai's distant kin hailing for parley, intrigued by the hybrid's emergence. Lyra turned to Kai amid the hangar chaos, her hand finding his. "You're more than I ever imagined," she said, the surprise softening into acceptance. He nodded, the powerful revelation reshaping his identity. "And you're still the one I chose." As they boarded the stellar drift, preparing to confront the incoming forces, the galaxy felt reborn, humans not just survivors, but integral to the star's secrets. Yet the twist lingered, a promise of more surprises. Visions hinted at other hybrids scattered across worlds, a network waiting to awaken. Kai ignited the engines, Lyra at his side, their bond unbreakable. The ship lifted off, hurtling toward destiny, the Empire's fate now in the hands of a man who was both outsider and heir. As the stellar drift's engines roared to life, lifting them away from the Citadel's chaos, with a shudder that echoed the turmoil in their hearts, Ki gripped the controls, his hybrid senses tingling with the Nexus's lingering revelations. The ship streaked into the upper atmosphere, Kitsune's glowing forests shrinking below like a fading dream, but the drama was far from over. It was accelerating, pulling them into a vortex of galactic intrigue, where every star seemed to whisper betrayals. Lyra strapped into the company pilot's seat, her white hair still disheveled from the hangar skirmish, her pointed ears flattened against her head in a mix of determination and lingering shock. Through their bond, he felt her emotions swirling, the sting of Tiva's treachery, the awe of his revealed heritage, and a fierce protectiveness that mirrored his own. "The Whisper's fleets are decloaking," she said, her voice steady but edged with dramatic urgency, as she monitored the scanners. "Their leader, your kin, hails us. We can't outrun them in this old bucket." Kai shot her a sidelong grin, injecting a dash of humor to cut the tension. "Hey, don't diss the drift. She's gotten me out of tighter spots than a family reunion gone wrong. Besides, if this guy's family, maybe he'll buy us dinner first." The comms panel crackled to life before she could respond. A holographic figure materializing above the console, a Vulpine elder with silver-streaked hair and eyes that mirrored Kai's green ones, sharp and unyielding. "Hybrid descendant," the leader intoned, his voice booming with theatrical gravity, as if addressing a cosmic tribunal. "I am Orin, your bloodline's guardian. The Nexus calls you home to us." The drama heightened instantly, the words hanging like a charged nebula cloud. Kai leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms with feigned nonchalance, though his pulse raced. Guardian? Last I checked, my family tree was more like a tumbleweed rolling solo through space. What's your angle, Uncle Orin? Lyra's tail flicked nervously, brushing against his leg in an awkward reminder of their intimacy amid this familial bombshell. Orin's hologram flickered, his ears twitching in what might have been amusement or irritation. The exiles were created to protect the rift from within Lunara's corruption. Tiva sought to hoard it, we to share its wisdom. Join us and claim your birthright. The awkwardness escalated as Orin's gaze shifted to Lyra, his expression softening into something almost paternal. Princess, you've bonded with our kin. A fortuitous twist, perhaps the Nexus's design. Lyra stiffened, her hand instinctively reaching for Kai's, but the bond broadcast her discomfort like a feedback loop. Here she was, facing the man who could be her in-law, in the midst of an interstellar standoff. Kai felt it too, the situation veering into absurd territory. Whoa, slow down there, matchmaker, we just tied the knot sort of, and now you're crashing the honeymoon with a fleet. Bad form, Gramps. Orin's chuckle rumbled through the speakers, a dry, humorless sound that only amplified the drama. But before Kai could quip further, alarms blared, the Whisperer's ships encircling them, tractor beams flickering to life. Surrender the ship, Orin commanded, his tone shifting to imperial demand. Or we'll take it by force. Drama surged as the stellar drift lurched under the beam's pull, engines straining like a beast in chains. Kai punched the thrusters, evading one lock only to snag another, the ship bucking wildly. Hold on, he yelled, flipping switches with hybrid-enhanced speed, his Vulpine instincts guiding evasive maneuvers that twisted space itself. Lyra channeled her powers, projecting illusions of decoy ships to confuse the pursuers' phantom drifts darting in all directions. One Whisperer vessel fired a warning shot, the energy grazing their shields in a shower of sparks that lit the cockpit like fireworks. They're not bluffing, Lyra gasped, her tail coiling tightly around the seat's armrest. Kai dodged another blast, the ship rolling in a barrel spin that pressed them into their harnesses. Neither am I. Time for some human flair, old-school asteroid slalom. He veered toward a nearby debris field, remnants of an ancient battle, weaving through jagged rocks with precision that bordered on reckless. The pursuit intensified, drama building with each near miss, a boulder clipping a Whisperer wing, forcing it to peel off, another ship exploding in a fireball as it collided with debris. Orin's voice cut through again, laced with frustration. Foolish boy, you can't escape your destiny. Kai laughed, a genuine burst of humor amid the chaos. Destiny? Buddy, my destiny was hauling cargo and dodging taxes. This family drama's a upgrade or downgrade, depending on the in-laws. Lyra shot him a look, half exasperated, half amused, but the awkwardness peaked when a psychic probe from Orin pierced their bond. A invasive scan that flooded Kai with fragmented memories. Orin's sister, the scout, whispering lullabies to an infant hybrid on Earth, experiments in hidden labs to blend bloodlines. It was intimate, violating, like stumbling into a family album uninvited. Get out of my head, Kai snarled, slamming a mental shield up with newfound Vulpine strength, the effort making him sweat. Lyra reinforced it, her powers intertwining with his in a desperate weave, but the probe revealed more. Orin wasn't just kin, he was Kai's grandfather, the architect of the hybrid program, exiled for his radical views on sharing the Nexus's power. The revelation hit like a hyperspace wake, heightening the drama to operatic levels. Grandfather? Lyra echoed through the bond, her voice a mix of shock and unintended humor. Does that make me your granddaughter-in-law? Kai nearly lost control of the ship, swerving wildly as he burst out laughing. Oh stars, this is getting weird. Next thing, we'll have holiday dinners with laser turkey. But the levity was short-lived. A direct hit rocked the drift, shields dropping to critical. Alarms wailed, red lights flashing like accusatory eyes. We're losing power, Lyra cried, her hands flying over auxiliary controls. In the midst of the turmoil, awkward situations piled on the ship's AI, a quirky relic from Kai's solo days, chimed in with unhelpful commentary. Hull integrity at 60%. Suggest romantic evacuation. Life pods have mood lighting. Kai groaned, smacking the console. Not now, you glitchy matchmaker. Lyra couldn't help but snort, the humor a brief lifeline as they plummeted toward a moonlit surface for an emergency landing. The Whispers closed in, Orin's flagship looming like a judgmental parent, "Land and submit," he broadcast, his tone brooking no argument. Kai guided the battered ship down, skidding across crystalline dunes in a plume of dust, the impact jarring them forward. As the dust settled, they unstrapped, grabbing weapons from the lockers: Kai's trusty blaster, Lyra's psychic amplifier staff. The drama crested as boarding ramps extended from the encircling ships, Whisperer troops disembarking in disciplined ranks, tails swishing with predatory intent. Orin himself strode out, flanked by guards, his presence commanding under the moonlight's harsh light. "It's time to embrace your legacy, Kai," he declared, extending a hand like a king offering a throne. But Kai, stepping out with Lyra at his side, felt the bond surge with clarity: the Nexus whispering warnings of Orin's true ambition: not sharing power, but monopolizing it through hybrids like puppets. "Legacy? You mean control?" Kai shot back, his voice dramatic, echoing across the dunes. The awkward standoff thickened, troops hesitated, sensing the familial tension. Lyra stepped forward, her robe billowing in the wind, ears erect in defiance. "He's not yours to command, Orin. The Nexus chose us together." Humor flickered in when a troop fumbled his weapon, dropping it in the sand with a clatter that broke the silence. "Smooth," Kai quipped, earning a glare from Orin, but a ripple of uneasy chuckles from the ranks, hybrids among them, perhaps drawn to his irreverence. The elder's face twisted in rage. "Insolent whelp, seize them." The battle erupted anew, drama exploding in a whirlwind of blaster fire and psychic clashes. Kai and Lyra fought as one, their bond a seamless weapon. He provided cover fire, picking off advancing troops with hybrid precision. She wove illusions of sandstorms that blinded foes, her tail lashing like a whip. One awkward moment came when Orin unleashed a personal psychic assault, targeting Kai's doubts, visions of abandonment, Earth's isolation. "You were made for this," Orin roared. Kai faltered, but Lyra's touch grounded him, her humor shining through the link. "Made for me, you mean? Now kick his tail," Grandpa issues aside. They pressed the advantage, Kai tackling a guard in a roll down a dune, emerging victorious with sand in every crevice. "Note to self: beach fights suck," he muttered, spitting grit. Lyra blasted another wave, but Orin closed in, his staff clashing with hers in a psychic duel that lit the night like auroras. Energies crackled, the air humming with power, drama peaking as the Nexus's rift echoed faintly, amplifying the stakes. Kai joined the fray, his hybrid blood allowing him to disrupt Orin's focus with a targeted mental jab: memories of the scout's betrayal, her regret. Orin staggered, ears drooping. She chose exile for you," he admitted, voice cracking with unexpected vulnerability. The revelation added layers of awkward family drama. Orin wasn't a villain outright, but a misguided patriarch driven by loss. Troops wavered, some lowering weapons as the bond broadcast the truth. "Stand down," Kai commanded, his voice carrying Nexus authority. Orin slumped, defeated not by force, but by exposure. Perhaps the Nexus wills a new path. As guards secured him, the fleets above signaled truce, the drama shifting from conflict to uneasy alliance. Kai helped Lyra to her feet, brushing sand from her hair with a grin. "Well, that was a family picnic for the ages. Next time bring potato salad." She laughed, pulling him into a kiss amid the dunes, the awkwardness dissolving into hope. But whispers from the Nexus hinted at greater threats: other hybrids awakening, empires watching. Their journey was far from over, the stars beckoning with more twists. As the echoes of laughter faded into the wind-swept dunes of the moonlit, where the crystalline sands glittered under the harsh light like scattered diamonds from a shattered star, Kai and Lyra stood amidst the subdued Whisperer troops, the air thick with the scent of ozone from discharged weapons and the faint, metallic tang of victory. Orin, bound but unbowed, met Kai's gaze with a mixture of resentment and reluctant respect, his silver-streaked hair whipping in the breeze as shuttles from the fleets above began their descent. The drama that had crescendoed to this point now simmered into a fragile calm, the Nexus's whispers fading to a gentle hum in their shared bond, a promise of peace, however tentative. Lyra's hand remained in Kai's, her fingers interlaced with his in a grip that spoke volumes. They had weathered betrayals, unveiled secrets, and forged something unbreakable from the chaos. "This isn't the end," she said softly, her amber eyes lifting to the stars where the Whisperer's ships hung like silent guardians. Kai squeezed her hand, his hybrid heritage now a bridge rather than a burden. "No, but it's a hell of a chapter close. Let's make sure the next one's on our terms." The negotiations unfolded under the moonlight's unyielding glare, a makeshift summit in the shadow of the stellar drift's battered hull. Orin, seated on an improvised crate with guards flanking him, laid out his vision, with the eloquence of a fallen visionary, the exile's original mandate to democratize the Nexus's power, twisted over centuries into isolation and resentment. "We were cast out for daring to question Lunara's hoarding," he explained, his voice carrying the weight of generations. Kai listened, arms crossed, his human skepticism tempered by the familial pull thrumming through his veins. Lyra interjected with grace, her pointed ears attuned to the undercurrents of truth and deception. "Protection through division breeds only war. The Nexus showed us unity hybrids, Vulpine, humans alike." The troops murmured agreement, many revealing subtle hybrid traits, a flicker of psychic energy, an uncanny resilience. It was a revelation that softened the edges of conflict, turning enemies into potential allies. Kai added his own touch, lightening the heavy atmosphere with a quip. "Look, if we're all family, maybe we skip the feuds and go straight to the awkward reunions. I've got stories from Earth that'd curl your tails." As terms were hammered out, a truce, brokered by the Nexus's impartial visions, with Orin agreeing to supervised reintegration into Lunara society, the drama gave way to tentative hope. Shuttles ferried representatives from the fleets, Vulpine elders mingling with hybrid outcasts in discussions that stretched into the moonlet's long day cycle. Kai and Lyra moved among them, their bond a living conduit for empathy, bridging gaps that words alone couldn't. She shared psychic glimpses of Kitsune's beauty. Inviting the exiles home, he recounted humanity's tales of perseverance, inspiring awe at the primitive species that had birthed such tenacity. One young hybrid, a pilot like Kai with eyes mirroring his own, approached hesitantly. "You're like us?" Kai clapped him on the shoulder. "More than I knew, kid. Stick around, I'll teach you how to hot wire a starship the human way." Lyra smiled, her tail brushing Kai's leg in affectionate approval, the gesture a quiet anchor amid the swirling diplomacy. With the Accords signed digital seals pulsing with Nexus energy, the group boarded transports back to Kitsune, the stellar drift towed behind like a faithful companion. The journey home was a reflective one, the hyperspace hum lulling them into quiet conversations. In their private quarters aboard Orin's flagship, Lyra leaned against Key, her head on his shoulder as they watched the star streaks blur past. "Everything's changed," she murmured, her fingers tracing the scars on his arm, marks from battles that now felt like badges of their shared path. He turned to her, cupping her face gently, his thumb brushing the tip of her pointed ear in a way that made her shiver. "Changed for the better. I came here a lone drifter. Now I've got a princess, a empire, and apparently a cosmic family tree. Not bad for a cargo hauler." Her laughter was soft, melodic, easing the lingering shadows of doubt. They kissed then, slow and deep, the bond amplifying every sensation, the warmth of her skin, the electric hum of her psychic essence mingling with his grounded humanity. It was a moment of pure connection, bodies and souls aligning in the void, a testament to how far they'd come. Upon arrival at Kitsune, the citadel buzzed with renewed life, forests glowing brighter as if sensing the healing rift. Tiva, confined but granted a chance at redemption through Nexus-guided therapy, watched from her quarters as the exiles integrated hybrids teaching psychic techniques to Vulpine youth, humans from scattered colonies invited to share their adaptive innovations. Kai and Lyra stood at the forefront, company rulers in a reformed empire where the Nexus's power was shared judiciously, visions guiding policies that fostered unity across stars. Drama lingered in the early days, awkward council meetings where old grudges surfaced, only to be diffused by Kai's humor. "All right, folks, if we're arguing over rift access, let's settle it human-style rock, paper, scissors, psychic edition." Laughter often followed, bridging divides. Lyra's grace complemented his wit, her regal presence commanding respect while his relatability won hearts. As moons waxed and waned, their bond deepened into a partnership that redefined Lunara. They explored the Nexus together, its rift unveiling futures where humans and Vulpine coexisted as equals, hybrids like Ki becoming ambassadors to distant worlds. One evening, in the same grove where their passion had first ignited, they lay under the bioluminescent canopy, her white hair splayed across his chest like moonlight on waves. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked, her voice a whisper against his skin. Kai shook his head, pulling her closer, feeling the subtle curve of her body mold to his. "Regret? Nah. I declared I'll marry you in the heart of madness, and look where it led to us. Her tail wrapped around him possessively, and they lost themselves in each other once more. Touches tender yet fervent, a celebration of survival and love. The grove responded, vines blooming in vibrant hues, as if the planet itself blessed their union. Years blurred into a tapestry of triumphs, alliances forged with Earth's remnants, turning humanity from galactic footnotes to revered innovators, the Whispers fully absorbed, their knowledge enriching Lunara's archives. Kai, ever the pilot at heart, took Lyra on joyrides in the refurbished stellar drift, showing her the raw beauty of space. Asteroid fields danced like cosmic ballets, nebulae painted in colors no artist could capture. She, in turn, taught him the subtleties of psychic harmony, their minds intertwining in flights of shared dreams. Challenges arose: rogue factions testing the new order, natural cosmic upheavals, but they faced them united, Kai's hybrid grit and Lyra's ethereal wisdom proving invincible. Humor remained their secret weapon. During a tense negotiation with a belligerent alliance from Urandor, Kai quipped, "If we can't agree on trade routes, how about a staring contest? Loser buys the synth ale." The room dissolved in chuckles, paving the way for accord. In quieter moments, they reflected on the journey from suitors driven mad by the veil to a human pilot's bold declaration that shattered traditions. The Nexus, once a guarded secret, now a beacon of shared enlightenment, its rift stabilized by their bond. Children came hybrids of their own, with pointed ears and unyielding spirits, playing in Kitsune's forests under watchful twin moons. Kai watched them with a father's pride, Lyra at his side, her hand in his as always. "We built this," he said one twilight, the sky ablaze with auroras from a passing comet. She nodded, leaning into him, her curves familiar and comforting after all these cycles. "And we'll protect it together." As empires rose and stars evolved, their story became legend, a tale of a fox princess and her human savior, where love conquered madness, heritage bridged divides, and humanity's indomitable will illuminated the galaxy. The Nexus whispered eternal approval, its visions showing endless horizons of peace. Kai and Lyra, forever entwined, gazed at the stars, knowing their ending was but a new beginning in the vast, wondrous cosmos.